have to congratulate you all getting here an hour earlier than usual today. Well done. You get extra brownie points for that. I woke up this morning feeling very happy. I woke up in good time and got myself ready, turned my phone on, ping, and there's a message from Father Nicholas. Oh, Father, I'm sick. I can't come to church this morning. So that's why Father Nicholas is not here. He's unwell, unfortunately. You might be thinking that he was watching the grand finals last night, but he wasn't. Well, he might have been, but he's actually sick. That's why he's not here. So all of a sudden, my day took off, and Father Nicholas was preaching this morning, so that was another challenge for me. No such thing as a problem, only a challenge. So it's a good gospel passage this morning, the Golden Rule. What a gem. There's no commandment of Jesus which has caused more discussion as the commandment to love our enemies. That's a challenge. That's a big challenge. Some of us find trouble loving our own family, but never mind loving our enemies. And that's the standard Jesus gives us. And St. Silouan of Mount Athos, he said that that is the test of whether you're a genuine Christian or not, whether you can love your enemies. That's quite a challenge, isn't it? Quite a challenge. Before we can obey, we have to discover what this golden rule means first. The love we have for our family is usually something which comes naturally. It's not an effort, usually. There are exceptions, of course. And we speak of falling in love, you know. It's something that happens to us. We don't plan it, it just happens to us. It's great. But this love towards our enemies is something, it's not only something of the heart. It's something of the will. It's something by which the grace of Christ we must will ourselves to do. This passage has two great facts about the Christian ethic, this wonderful ethic. First of all, it's positive. It doesn't consist of not doing things. Often people, when they grow up, say, well, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I haven't done the other. Well, the question then is, well, what have you done? And Christianity is not doing this, not doing that, not doing the other. It's actually what we are doing. Jesus gave us the golden rule, which calls us to do for others as we would have them do to us. This idea of doing to others what they do, you want them to do to us, is quite common in other religions. In the Jewish religion, for example, there was one great Jewish rabbi who was asked by a man to teach him the whole law while he stood on one leg. And he said, what is hateful to you, do not to another. But that's a negative. So if you consider what somebody's doing to you is hateful, don't do it to anybody else. It's don't do again. Philo, the great philosopher, said, what you hate to suffer, do not do to anyone else. Again, do not do. It's a negative. And then Socrates, the Greek orator, said, whatever makes you angry when you suffer them at the hands of others, do not do to other people. Again, do not do to others. Every one of these forms is a negative. And it's not really hard to keep yourself from such action. But it's a very different thing to go out of your way to do to others what we want them to do to us. It's a very challenging commandment to us. And the very core of Christian conduct is that it consists not in refraining from doing bad things, but in actively doing good things. The second part of this Christian ethic is that it's based on the extra thing. Jesus described the common ways of sensible conduct and dismissed them with the question, well, what's special about that? You lend to somebody? Other people, non-Christians lend to non-Christians. What's special about that? And so on and so on. But the question that Jesus asks us is, how much better are we than the ordinary person, the non-Christians, those of other religions? It's not our neighbor with whom we must compare ourselves, it's God with whom we must compare ourselves. And in that comparison, we don't always come out looking so good. So what is the reason for this Christian conduct? The reason is that it makes us like God. We find in the Sermon on the Mount, God sends his rain on the just and on the unjust. He's not selective. He doesn't just rain on the Christians and not on whoever else. He rains on everybody, regardless of where they are in their relationship to him. He's kind to the man who brings him joy and equally kind to the man who grieves his heart. God's love embraces saints and sinners alike. It's that love that we must copy. If we also seek even our enemy's highest good, we will in truth be the children of God. Okay, that's this morning's challenge. In the epistle this morning, that's the gospel. In the epistle this morning, the last words are the fear of God. And I just thought I'd think about that a little bit. St. Isaac the Syrian said, the foundation of man's true life is fear of God. And you might think, well, we've just been talking about the love of God and how he loves everybody and how we've got to love everybody. Well, why are we talking about the fear of God here? What does that mean? It seems to be a contradiction in terms. God loves us, but why do we have to fear him? Well, there are 3 levels of fear when it comes to God. The first level is generated by the threat of punishment. In the early days of my Christian life, I think the thing that motivated me was I was afraid of hell, or I was afraid of punishment and that sort of thing. And that was good because it helped me to develop self-control, patience, hope in God, and helped me to struggle against my passions to try and become a holy person. That's the first level. The second level of fear is linked with love and constantly produces reverence in the soul so that our love for God doesn't grow cold. So the next level is you're afraid that your love will grow cold, so you keep working on it. And then the third level is the fear of bringing the name of God into bad repute. When I was a young man, I was in the army. My father had been in the army before me, so he was well known in the army. If I'd have done something bad as a young officer or whatever, it would have reflected not just on me, but on him. And so we're motivated now. The fear of God is the fear of bringing a bad reputation to God, not to us. And the reason we do that is just like I was a child of my father, St. Paul says we are sons and daughters of God. So this is what motivates us to live holy lives. That we're afraid of bringing a bad reputation to God. When it comes to giving to the poor and so on, I remember many years ago, I was in London actually, and this old lady was sitting just sitting on a cold night, and she was shivering, and she was saying, can you give me some money? And I gave her some money, and then I went on. And then later on, I saw her in the pub. and she was as happy as Larry, She obviously had a good night, and she was just boozing away. And it made me struggle after that to give, because I think, well, what are they going to use this money for? I'm the steward. God's made me a steward of this money. Well, how do I do this? How do we work it out? And then when I became an Anglican priest many, many years ago, you have people knocking. The priest's church is right next to the church. Sorry, the house is right next to the church. People knocking on the door all the time, asking for handouts. You think, how do we know whether they're genuine or whether they're just trying to milk the system? And certainly there were people who were milking the system, no question about it. And I struggled with this. But recently I've been reading a book called The Diary of Happiness. It's an unusual title when you read the book because it's about Archimandrite Nikolai Steinhardt, who actually was a Jew who was converted to Christianity in Romania. And then they tried to get him to sort of rat on his friends and so on, but he refused, and he ended up in prison. And the story is about his life. But one of the things he mentions is that when we give something to somebody, let's say we give them a coat, and I've had this as well. As an Anglican, we gave a colour television to somebody, and they went off and sold it and got whatever they wanted. So this happens. So you give a coat to somebody, and they sell it to do whatever they want. What Archimandrite Nikolai said was, that's not our worry, what they do with it. Because that coat You've given it to Christ. Christ is wearing it. So the money I gave to that person who went off and drank it, Jesus drank it. See what I mean? So we don't have to worry about what they're going to do with it. What we have to worry about is being loving, the golden rule. If you were in that sort of situation, starving, freezing, you look like you're starving and freezing, would you want somebody to give you a few coins? Give them something. It doesn't matter what they do with it, because that's Christ doing it. May God help us to live this gospel out in our lives in the fear of God in a positive way.